So I mentioned, severe convective storm, wildfire has a huge impact on pricing, right? We do have some tools and factors that we use to analyze this exposure. California was a homeowners event for the most part, but it did impact large commercial also.
Welcome to the Leader's Edge podcast. I'm Zach Ewell, podcast producer and market analyst at Leader's Edge. 2025 is over, but the risks and impacts are just as important and topical this year. The insurance industry continues to reevaluate secondary perils. Meanwhile, data centers continue to pop up all around America. Their massive power needs and building requirements are impacting policyholders and the greater property market as a whole. With 2026 transferring so many risk topics from last year, I sat down with Michele Sansone, Chief Underwriting Officer for Property and Head of Multinational Solutions for AXA XL in the Americas, to understand how insurers are responding to these changing landscapes. First, we start our conversation by discussing the property market. While it seems that premium increases have been slowing in the market recently, risks are not getting any less complex or expensive. I asked Sansone to share what causes are creating the softening we are seeing in the property market.
The market dynamics really are about more capacity out there, right? We're probably in 7 straight years of some sort of positive rate increase. And now we've seen in 2025 a shift, right? We're seeing probably high single digits overall for rate reductions in the market, but I really think it has a lot to do with the fact that there's a lot more capacity out there. When investors think about where they want to put their money, they think about what's the highest price or where do you think the best money is to invest, and it seems like property right now is the place to be. So like I said, a lot more capacity than there was 3 and 4 years ago currently in the market, and I do believe that's what's driving down price. And if you're a client, if you're a risk manager, you want to get your best price as much as you value the other things that we offer. You definitely want to see what's out there. So as far as the risk environment, nothing's changed, right? The cost of us to put up capacity may have decreased slightly with the 2026 treaty renewals, but they really are. It's a changing environment as far as what the underlying costs are. A few years back we were talking windstorm and earthquake. Then we've got tornado, severe convective storm, winter storms, and now you can throw wildfire into that. So every time as some of these events become modeled, they definitely change the underlying costs to how much it costs us to put out capacity for that one individual client, and of course that impacts everybody overall. So as far as pricing adjustments are concerned, I think that the rates, like I said, have been very high for the past 6 to 7 years. And I think that markets will be competitive as long as they can, but we certainly don't want to get back to where we were in 2017 and 2018. So I mentioned severe convective storm, wildfire has a huge impact on pricing, right? We do have some tools and factors that we use to analyze this exposure. California was a homeowners event for the most part, but it did impact large commercial also. It impacted us just in the rating environment, it impacted us from a regulator perspective, and it's certainly going to continue to impact us when we think about the underlying costs for how we put capacity out.
Next, we dive directly into secondary perils and why they are driving more loss costs in property, and how to be transparent with clients in dealing with these exposures.
All right, so I touched a little bit on this when we were talking about the market changing. So I definitely think that companies, including us, are much more data-driven, right? We're using modeling to analyze these perils, right? For the windstorm, for the earthquake, for the severe convective storm, for the winter storm, for the wildfire. So these are helpful both for us and for our customers because we're very transparent about what we find in these models. So we want our clients to understand why their costs are changing, or why we're imposing bigger deductibles, or why we may have to supplement certain exposures. I think clients can appreciate that more when you can explain it to them. So we don't keep a lot of secrets. We try to be as transparent as we possibly can. But along with that costs money, right? Those tools cost money. And helping clients address those exposures with our engineering capabilities is something that we constantly are trying to foster with risk managers. You understand where you're building this facility. If it's in California, what's surrounding this building? Vegetation needs to be dealt with. Adjustments in, like I said, exclusions or sublimits. And mitigation is huge for clients when they have these types of exposures. And some of them have all of these exposures, which is even more painful, right? Some of them just have some, but some of them do have, locations all around the United States and all around the globe. And we've seen impact of wildfires outside of the United States, along with, winter storms and hurricane. So they continue to be a challenging analysis and a challenging perils to be able to handle from both a company perspective and from an insured's perspective.
We then discuss how insurers are responding to the changing nature of property for risk management and underwriting, and what tools and modeling are used to understand the price of risk.
So I think I mentioned this a little bit before, right? We're using new modeling, science that tells us what locations are exposed to what perils. I think that the technology is there as a tool, right? It's there to show the clients why we're concerned about the perils, but it helps the clients also understand and become more aware of these growing and more impactful type of perils and what can happen when you're impacted by one. So again, like the risk engineering piece is a very important component to helping them make sure that they're making their physical locations more protected to handle these types of exposures. Again, we're very transparent with the modeling. We share it with our clients, but we want our insureds to make sure that they're making maintenance inspection reviews of their facilities and checking to see if their roof is adequately protected and if it's cleaned and if it's got any damage that needs to be addressed, because these things all impact the physical structure of the building. So we want clients to be very involved in how they're managing these exposures.
Sanson then shares how policyholders are responding to changing markets and their own risk profiles.
It's interesting because some clients are very focused on, risk mitigation. But when your broker's telling you that, you can get this cheaper or you can put this out to market, it does cause everybody, all of us, a lot of angst. We're a market that's very much relationship driven. So we're not a transactional market. When we decide to enter into a bid or a quote with an insured and develop that relationship, we're looking to do this long term. So when we hear that it's going out to market or there's a broker change, it always causes us some grief and some pain because we've invested already, right? We've invested learning about the insured, spending time asking questions, understanding the way they think, understanding the way they want to deal with risk engineering, how they want to help their risk, understanding their exposures. So I think that is a little bit painful for us personally in my space. But when you can get something cheaper, everybody's got, a boss to report to, our CFO or our CEO to have to explain why I'm willing to stay with a certain insurer for more money when I can get it cheaper. So I think that varies based on the client that you're dealing with. It's not an easy conversation. And when you think about a client, they've been paying rate increases year after year after year. So what we try to do as underwriters is we try to look at, let's look back to 2017. Let's see what we've done over the years for this customer and how has their exposure changed, and let's be reasonable about what we're expecting from them, and let's make sure we're talking to them so they understand what we're thinking and we can understand what they're faced with, because sometimes you don't find out until the 11th hour. New CFO, he's forcing me to get my price down, I've got to go with a shared and layered versus 100%. So there's all these kind of circumstances that come into play, and if you're not communicating early on, then you probably don't have all the insights and don't understand exactly what the client's facing. So understanding that is huge.
And finally, we discuss one of 2025's hottest topics, data centers. How land requirements, size, power, data, and much more factor into covering this growing industry.
So this is not an easy space, right? You have your brick and mortar clients that are just building these facilities, then you have the ones that are just operating them as tenants, and then you have ones that do both. So there's many moving parts. We think about the unnamed contingent business interruption exposure, the named contingent business interruption exposure, how all of these interact with different insureds. If I'm a hospital, am I storing my data at one of these data facilities? If I'm a retail, what is the interconnection between all of this? And you really need to understand this. This is not a one and done type of capacity. I mean, I think, making sure they're well built and protected is one piece of this. The energy is the other part. Like, how are these huge facilities going to continue to operate when it comes to power? I mean, we're talking about maybe small, nuclear reactors to come up with ways to be able to store their own, build their own energy. So it's a huge, it's a huge exposure right now that not a lot of people understand. So we're going into this with a global approach, trying to think about how we can help our clients, but there's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of stuff to know. So we've got a team. Like I said, it's not an easy thing, but we're definitely here to put up our capacity. It doesn't scare us to be able to do it. And these facilities are tremendous.
That was my conversation with Michele Sansone, Chief Underwriting Officer for Property and Head of Multinational Solutions for AXA XL in the Americas. I hope you enjoyed it. For more podcasts, please subscribe or go to leadersedge.com.